welcome on board. Well, we've just got off to a great start here, everyone, and welcome on board the Sunrise Safari. We've come into this area to follow up on any sign of leopard, because we headed out on a night drive last night after broadcast, and we heard some leopards rasping in this general area. While we were driving around, we were lucky enough to actually see an aardvark. It's a very rare animal to see out here, and in 4.5 years of being here, I saw the first one that was alive last night. I have seen a few others, but all of them were dead and had been killed by a leopard. Thankfully, the one we saw last night, I think, escaped the leopard that were calling in this area. And I've actually just seen some leopard tracks heading straight up this road in a northerly direction towards the quarantine clearings. Now, for those of you who have not met me before, my name is Scott, and I'm teamed up today with Brian on camera. In the final control room, Tara is directing the show with Nikki lending her a hand, and Brent has headed out on the other vehicle with Vim, and his plans are to check our northern boundary in the hope that the Nkahuma Pride, or who knows, possibly the Birmingham Coalition, may have come onto our property. So it's been a while since we've seen lion, and Brent's going to do his best to try and track some down for you. What I'd like to try and do now is work out who these leopard tracks belong to, and at this stage it looks like it could be a female leopard, and I'm just going to reverse and allow Brian to get an angle on these tracks. It can be quite difficult to distinguish between a young male or a female, but judging by the size, it's looking to me like it could in fact be a female. And you'll see as Brian zooms out that she's heading straight up this road, and so will we. Now, this is a live safari, everyone, and if it is your first time joining, a very warm welcome. It's important that I let you know that you can interact with us very easily, and to do so you can send any questions, comments or thoughts through to #Safari or questions@wildearth.tv on email. We really do love interacting with you, so please let us know what's going on. And it's a crisp, cool morning today, 14 degrees Celsius, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, and I hope all of you did get the message, or those of you who didn't wouldn't be tuned in, but this is our first time change, so we have headed out a little bit earlier, and we've done this so that we can head out at the optimum time. And we're heading out a little bit late, as the sun is beginning to rise earlier in the morning and set later in the afternoon. And we've got off to a good start. A beautiful lone zebra. Quite strange to see them alone, and I'm just scanning around to see if there aren't any of his companions nearby. It looks like a youngster. It's not fully grown. Oh, I have seen a few more in the background behind him now. There we go. So not easy to see, but at least we can confirm that it does have some friends nearby. I always feel sorry for and wonder about lone animals that are usually supposed to be in herds. Wonderful. There's a bank of clouds, thin clouds all above us, and quite a thick bank to the east, so sunset may be ever so slightly delayed by those clouds. But I think it's going to turn into a beautiful day here. Excuse me. No further sign of these leopard tracks, which is interesting. I would have presumed that they would have carried on along this road for a little bit longer than they did. Usually when leopards and lion do pick a kind of general movement of direction and have got a good pathway or highway to use, like this road, they tend to stick to it, but possibly there was something for that leopard to hunt or stalk nearby that caused it to move off, or it may simply have wanted to move in a different direction. When we were out on the night drive, the general consensus amongst all of us was that there was 2 different leopards calling. When we stopped initially, we heard one call quite close to us, and we waited a few more minutes to see if we could hear any further calls to get an idea of which direction it may be moving in. And we heard a call which sounded like it was much, much further away. So guessing that 2 leopards may well have been interacting. Brent, there's tracks for 1 leopard heading north from Valanatis on Zoe's, but they didn't stay on the road for too long. Copy that, thanks Brent. So just thought I'd update Brent on those tracks that I found, and he updated me that he has yet to find any lion tracks, sadly, on our northern boundary. And it sounds like for now we are the only 2 people out exploring, but I'm sure a lot more vehicles will come out and join the search for anything exciting with us. And because it is such a large area that these animals and we have to roam, it's critical that we work as a team with the other guides in order to share information and sightings together. I'm told Vanessa and a whole load more of you are hoping that it was Shadow who was calling last night, and we are in an area where she could have been looking for young Sindile, her cub, who she hasn't seen for a week as of yesterday, as she's been off mating and doing other things. I personally don't feel that it would have been her, because she was seen yesterday morning very, very far from here. But who knows, maybe she decided to really make headway and move quickly back in this direction. So it could have been her, but my thoughts is that it was too early last night for it to have been her, considering where she was seen this morning. Yesterday morning. Okay, well, Brian and myself will be continuing to try and work this area. What I'm going to do is loop back onto Impala Plains and check further west of where we are now, and failing that, what I'll probably do is head to the last position of Sindile to see if there's any tracks of Shadow coming back to collect him, and failing that, we will just search for him. Now while we continue doing that little plan, we're gonna send you across to Brent very shortly so he can give you an update on what he's up to, and let's hope that you have some luck tracking down some lions with them. We'll see you all a little bit later.
Good morning and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name is Brent Smith and I have Vim on camera on this Sunrise Safari. It is quite nippy, and a lot of you will notice we've changed our times, and what this is doing is giving us that little bit of time, extra time in the magic time is what I call it, where we're more likely to find some of these apex predators on the move. So I'm very excited to be out early. I'd much rather be out here than in bed, and we're very much hoping that we can find some lion tracks this morning. I haven't seen lions since James and I went to Botswana and Zimbabwe on that little trip we went, so I'm really hoping we can find some fresh lion tracks. The Nkuhumas crossed out into Buffelshoek and they were very close to the Manyeleti boundary. I haven't heard any updates yet. Scott and I are the first guys out, so hopefully we will be hot on the tracks before anyone else even wakes up. But I'm hoping that the Birmingham boys have moved. They were heading west last time. I'm hoping they moved into this area. So we're checking our whole northern boundary, and then we're going to check the eastern boundary next. And only then, if we have no tracks, will we have to start scratching our heads and make a new plan. But it is a beautiful morning. The sun is not yet to pop up, and as soon as it does, we will definitely give you a show of that. The cloud is dissipating and I'm excited, and hopefully we're going to get some luck this morning. If not, if we don't have any luck with the cats, there's lots of other amazing and interesting things to see out here, and we can also follow up on the little signs that spring is on its way. So spring in the African bush is not quite as prominent as it is, say, in the northern hemisphere. It's also, we don't really have 4 seasons out here. We've really got 2, which is dry and wet and hot and, well, cold for us, but you guys know a lot more about cold than I do, I'm sure. So we're going to continue on down the boundary and see what else we can find. And a big thank you to Lucy and Diane, who have let us know that they heard lions calling last night on the Juma camp. So hopefully they'll be close enough for us to follow up on. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Birmingham boys again. Be interesting to see if they've got any new nicks and scars. And from the other lion updates, apart from the Nkuhumas that we know are to the north of us, I have heard that the pride with that one remaining male cub and the Matimba males have actually moved way south than what they normally go, and are in Londolozi and Mala Mala at the moment. So they've moved quite far from their usual range, and I'm very sure that's avoidance of the 5 marauding Birmingham boys. Also with the Nkuhumas, they've been pushing a lot further west than they have traditionally, and also probably avoiding the Birmingham boys, and they met at contact with the Tsalala pride or the Mangen, or Tsalala breakaway pride or the Mangen pride. And since then they have now pushed way back north again, but that's firmly into where the Birminghams have been roaming recently. Just checking all the roads that lead off, making sure there's no tracks crossing in or out. Hopefully, fingers crossed today, they're crossing in and out. But one thing you can't control the animals move. Have a little signal. Just
good. Welcome back, everyone, and apologies, Brent's signal got a little bit shaky there, but not to worry, I'm sure it will sort itself out shortly. And at least you got to spend a little bit of time with him and get an update on how his morning's been so far. I'm really happy to be out a little bit earlier, and I'm feeling that by dragging ourselves out of bed when it is dark, we are going to get rewarded. No further sign of any tracks. Switched over to the Arethusa frequency, which is the property that we can also traverse to our west. And is that I want to hear some updates as to what's going on across there, depending on what's going on.
welcome back. Huge apologies for the gremlins this morning. They seem to be plaguing not only myself but Scott as well. We're approaching the eastern boundary at the moment, and this is the area I think most likely that we're going to find lion tracks if they have crossed onto Djuma. So Vim and I have both got our eyes peeled on the road and on the bush surrounding us. The one thing I do love about these early mornings is the absolute anticipation of finding fresh tracks. Doesn't always work in our favor, but when it does, it is incredible to be able to track and follow an animal from start to finish. Find the tracks, follow the tracks, find the animal. Possibly one of my most favorite. So speaking of tracks, Scott found the drag marks, and it looked like Sandile had killed and dragged something small like a steenbok or a dicat. Some eating on it done before that happened, and we are at the junction now, and the only tracks I see leading in are zebra tracks so far, but we're just gonna stop. Apologies again, it seems the gremlins are seriously plaguing us. So Ellen was asking if we ever had confirmation about Sandile and those drag marks, and what looks like it happened, that hyenas stole whatever he was dragging. It was something small like a steenbok or a duiker, but he probably would have eaten on it a bit before that happened. So hopefully he learns to hoist quite quickly and stop leaving his kills on the ground. And the sun has popped up. Just going to pop you guys in a spot where you can see it nicely. And a little bit further, we're just looking for a gap in the trees. Now I'm just going to turn onto this fire break shortly here. Should be able to get a nice shot of the sun popping up on the eastern horizon. Oh, lots of trees there. How's that there, Viv? I think that's the spot. A little bit forward, or are we good? Good. You can see it almost looks like a sunset with the mist and dust and everything that's around at the moment. We're just going to keep quiet for a few seconds. It's very, very still, apart from the odd green wood hoopoe who's cackling away. Few francolins calling as well, but unfortunately no male lions breaking the dawn with roars. We're going to continue on the eastern boundary. Always a great place to look for tracks, this eastern boundary. The road is quite sandy, so we're able to see them quite easily. It also is quite a thoroughfare area between Torchwood and ourselves, so there are a lot of areas that the animals sort of use as highways, so to speak. And a lot of these roads, one must remember, are placed here because there would have been large game paths or elephant paths in the past. And the tracks I said I saw crossing in were zebra, and we've managed to track these zebra from start to finish, and here they are. What I'm going to try to do for you guys, I know a lot of you really love taking screenshots, is that I'm going to try and move past the zebra and see if you guys can get a wonderful screenshot of the rising sun with zebra in the foreground. Oh, but before we do that, on the road, I have a very, very cool bird. It's a male double-banded sandgrouse. I'm trying to see, it's very unusual to see them alone, looking for the female, who might be off in the grass to the side somewhere. These sandgrouse are incredible, incredible birds, and they've got some very special adaptations. they often nest very, very far from water, and they feed very far from water, and they will fly vast distances. In some areas, sandgrouse can fly up to 100 kilometers to go get a drink. And what they do is, for their chicks on the nests, is they have a very dry diet of grass seeds and whatnot, and often live in very arid areas. They will collect water in their breast feathers, and they will fly back with those droplets of waters in their breast feathers all the way back to where they've nested, and then give that water to the chicks. So a really, really special adaptation. This area we only have one species of sandgrouse, but further north in Africa there are quite a few that share the same area. If we talk about the Kalahari and areas like that, they have timeshare, so to speak, when they drink. The double-banded sandgrouse will drink at sunset. The yellow-throated or Namakwa sandgrouse will drink at 1 o'clock in the morning. Or was it 4 o'clock in the morning? That's between 1 and 4 in the morning. And the Burchell's sandgrouse will then drink at 11 o'clock in the morning. And you can get flocks that are so large they almost block out the sky. So thousands and thousands of these sandgrouse, and obviously if they all drank at the same time, there would be huge competition at the waterholes. So the different species have time sharing, and they drink at different times of the day, which I find incredibly fascinating. And obviously that's to avoid competition at the waterhole. But in these very arid areas, these waterholes become sort of a death trap to a bird like a sandgrouse, and you'll often find serval, caracal, and even jackal will wait. And I've even seen jackal jump and take sandgrouse out of the air in northern Botswana. So amazing how everything, different animals in different areas will work differently. But down the road ahead, we've still got those zebras. Unfortunately, they've moved a little bit, so I don't know if we're going to be able to pop the sun behind them. And on the other side of them, it looks like a really nice big male waterbuck. And a giraffe. Just zoom down the road there for me, man. So there's a plethora of general game on sheeted cutline this morning. So we've got the zebras, and the big male waterbuck, and a giraffe. So we've got 3 species in one shot there. Of course, not exactly what you're looking for when you're looking for lions, especially with a giraffe around with that elongated neck. It can see very far and will often spot potential predators far before the other prey species. Oh, off he went. Unfortunately, he took off there, so I'm just going to search for my bird book. I was going to try show you, as he moved away, why the bird is named a double-banded sandgrouse. And we saw those lovely little nose bands quite clearly, but we didn't see the chest bands. There you go. No, that's the wrong page of sandgrasses. There we go. So number 2 here, and you can see it's got that white and black breastband on the male, also the white and black bars on the head. So, but it's generally referred to, the double band is this band around its chest here, and you can see the female quite drab in comparison, but their camouflage is quite a lot better than the males. And you'll notice in a lot of the sandgrouse species, the males, and with a lot of bird species, are far sort of more marked than the females. Oh, we've actually now got 4 species. We've got impala, giraffe, and zebra up ahead of us, and waterbuck. So sometimes we do come across animals that are traditionally herd animals, all alone, and Linda and many other viewers are wondering about this, specifically because there is a female kudu that is currently on the Arathusa dam cam, and it seems to be stranded on the island. Linda, I doubt that she's actually stranded on the island. I think she's probably chosen to be on that island and taking advantage if there's any food left there that the other animals might not have. And it's very difficult for me to say whether that kudu is alone, because there's a sort of a rule with kudu, and they are called the grey ghosts. And specifically because you're looking from a camera, we're not seeing the whole picture around. Kudu will often detach themselves from a herd, but they'll still be within a couple of 100 meters. And the rule is with the grey ghost, for every 1 kudu you can see, there's probably 3 you can't. I might be completely wrong, but I suspect the other kudu are quite close by, and I suspect the female is not stranded, but rather taking advantage of a food resource that hasn't been utilized yet. When we find other animals alone, traditionally herd animals that are alone, there could be various different reasons. Quite often there'll be young males that have been pushed out by dominant males, and so when we see male zebra by themselves, it's generally the fact that they've been moved off by the stallion. That giraffe has seriously put some distance on in a very short time. Did you see him there, VMP? It's still moving. Sort of directly behind the zebra now. Moving to the north. You can just pick up the giraffe through the bush there. And we've got another big male waterbuck coming across in front of us, joining the impalas just over there. I'm going to sneak forward. There's a male waterbuck, really nice set of horns, just off in the bush here. I'm going to see if we can get a nice clear shot of him. You can see those very nice wide sweeping horns on this waterbuck. You can see that lovely early morning soft light coming through at the moment. So what we've probably found here is that the waterbuck, the zebra and the impala have moved onto the crest here, where it's a little bit more open during the night as a defensive mechanism towards predators. And now as the light comes up, they're going to start moving further into the thicker bush in their search for food. So although waterbuck are often found around water, they're by no means limited to water. And I mean, we are very far away from any waterhole at the moment. The closest one is probably Buffalo's Hook waterhole, which is probably 1 kilometer away. And at the moment, you'll find around the waterholes a lot of the food has been exhausted. So they will have to move away from water, feeding up on the crests here where there is more grazing available. So with animals like elephants and buffalo and big herds of zebra utilizing those water holes, they will, for an area around there, decimate all the potential food, and so the animals will have to now move further between food and water. And obviously this creates an opportunity for quite a lot of predators. Also, the prey species are not as quite good condition as they are in the wet season. The quality of what they're eating isn't as good. So now they have to move between water and food, so this also will help deteriorate their condition a little bit, making the dry season a bit more of a time of plenty for the predators. Well, as they disappear off into the bush, we will disappear south down the eastern boundary and hoping to possibly find lion tracks. So we're just passing a dazzle of zebra. Well done on the use of the original collective noun there, James. And James would like to know what is the largest dazzle of zebra I've ever seen in my career. Oh, James, I'd say just zebra, individually zebra, probably about 300 to 400 in the zebra migration and the Makgadikgadi pans in Botswana. And it is absolutely incredible. They all migrate towards the Boteti River, which is the only water for miles. And you can have up to 400 or 500 zebra all drinking in one little spot along the river, and it is really a sight to behold. And you can actually see them coming in a sort of wall of dust as they make their way towards the water. But on that note, we're going to continue on and hopefully find some tracks. In the meantime, we're going to move from the mammals and go across to Scott, who's got an avian friend to show you.
Welcome back, and great to hear that you saw that sighting with a large amount of general game with Brent, and the most amounts of zebra I've ever seen personally was up in Kenya in the Masai Mara, and it was during the mighty migration where hundreds and thousands of wildebeest and zebra migrate following the rains. There's some yellow-billed hornbills that we've stopped to show you. They were feeding in the leaf litter, but as you can see now, one has flown up into this silver cluster leaf tree, and now it's moved off. They're such comical birds, and one of my favorites. It's just landed up ahead of us, so hopefully we'll be able to get you another glimpse. We are in the general area where Sindila, a young male leopard, was last seen yesterday afternoon. But no further sign of him just yet. What would be wonderful is if this hornbill and its partner decide to do their call, but no, it looks like it's found a small ant's nest that it's now gonna begin to break into and look for some more breakfast. So obviously it just flew up onto that vantage point to get into a new area to hunt, and it's going from ant's nest to ant's nest. They're little piles of sand that you can see protruding ever so slightly from the earth, and it's using that big beak of its to break open the nest and then snack on some of the inhabitants, although now it seems to be just feeding on a few other insects, not necessarily ants, or it could be some ants that are making their way back to their nest. You can hear a lot of bird song around us, I'm sure. Arrow-marked babblers are calling. Starlings, robins. A Cape turtle dove in the distance. Really interesting info sent through by some of you about the stranded kudu on the island at Arathusa. I wonder what would have caused it to take refuge there in the course of last night. Possibly some lion, or who knows, a leopard, hyena, wild dog. All likely candidates for the predators that may have chased it there. Ooh-wee. Excuse me. And I've just heard Brent's theory, and it's a good one, that possibly the kudu went there just to find some untapped resources that other animals have not been able to get to and feed on. And that's also a very, very good theory that I personally didn't think of. I'm sure you can hear the Cape turtle dove calling a lot clearer now, and I can actually see it. I want to see if we can get a little bit closer to it so we can show you it calling. Up in the large marula tree in front of us. Don't want to get too close in the fear that it may fly off. Oh, it's just hopped off onto a branch and has moved ever so slightly. Don't go. I really hope we get to see it calling again. They inflate a throat pouch to aid in their call. Oh, the hornbills joined it. Just want to give it a minute or two to see if the turtle dove, which is on the bottom right of your screen, doesn't decide to start calling again. But it appears like it's got quite comfortable there, ruffled up its feathers. It's still quite chilly. and the birds will extend their feathers to create a bigger layer of insulation around them on these crisp mornings, no different to a lot of the antelope. And some of the game that you were watching with Brent earlier may have looked a little bit fuzzier than normal. Well, no luck with the Cape Turtle Dove call again, but at least you did get to hear it quite clearly a little bit earlier. I'm thinking of possibly just heading into Arathusa quickly to see if anything interesting is going on there. Sadly, I haven't had much joy on the radio in terms of hearing any updates there, so it'll be better for us to get a bit closer to them, and that way hopefully we'll be able to hear them a little bit more clearly. Well, Brent has managed to find you yet another mammal, and it's another herbivore, but good to keep adding more to the list already of this morning's drive. So enjoy, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. It seems like cheetah cutline is where all the general game is hanging out this morning. We're now with quite an old lone wildebeest bull, and you can see he's got quite a few battle scars. If we look on the inside of his horn there, that's facing us, you can see how worn it is, and you can see the tip is also worn. So probably still a breeding male, and he'll hold his territory around here, but you don't get to be a wildebeest of this age without having encountered a few predators in your time. And you can see there he's definitely had a few battles with other bulls, sired a few young wildebeest, and you can see that rounded edge of the horn. He's done a lot of rubbing of his horns on the ground in the mud, and when he turns his face to us, you can see he's got quite a few nicks and scratches. I'll just go on to his left hand side of his bottom there for me, please, Viam. Looks like a possible scar there. I'll just wait for him to turn a bit. Not too bad. More than likely not from a predator. I thought there might be a scratch mark, but not. And there you can see that inside of the horn shining off the sun, how it's almost worn white where he's rubbed it. Really nice and relaxed old boy, this. Even though they look like a cow, they are not a cow, they are an antelope. There you can see that battle-worn forehead. An old boy. So we watch him graze. You'll notice how picky he is with what he eats. And hopefully later on today we'll get to see some zebras grazing and not moving. And we can show you the difference between a bulk grazer, which is a zebra, and a specialist grazer like a wildebeest. So a lot of people assume if you see lots of long grass it's good. It's not, actually. Short grass is much better for animals, and in a lot of cases specialist grazers like wildebeest need bulk grazers like zebra and buffalo that will keep this grass at quite a short level, allowing him to pick between and eat the grasses he prefers. So those of you who watch regularly will know that VM, who's on camera with me today, his nickname is the wildebeest, so I'm sure he's quite chuffed this morning to be spending some time with his kin. So VM, what's it like sitting next to your uncle wildebeest?
The one I got closest to ever.
And VM said this is the closest he's actually ever been to one of his brethren. I'm just going to move forward. Oh no, he's moving out behind the bush. And there we'll see now how he'll sniff over and pass over certain grasses and then pick out the grass in between. So, known as a blue wildebeest, or sometimes known as a brindled gnu, and that's from that really pretty markings on his neck there. You can see the darker and lighter hair. So in this early morning, not only is he getting nutrients from the grass he's feeding on, he'll probably be getting a little bit of moisture from the dew as well. They are a water-dependent species. And we can see that scar on his back leg, more than likely from fighting or from a branch and not from a predator like a lion. See how while he's in the long grass there, he sort of gets down in between to get to the shorter grasses. So we have two wildebeest species in South Africa. Oh, yes, we're talking about you. The blue wildebeest, which is this one, and the black wildebeest, which is a high veld specialist and doesn't occur down here in the low veld. It prefers the short, sweet veld and the dry, or not so much sweet veld up there, but sort of what do you call middle veld of the Drakensberg and the foothills of, and they will not generally drop down unless someone moves them into this area. This is the domain of the blue wildebeest, which is a bit bigger, and the horn shape is quite different as well. And I'm just going to find you a picture of the black wildebeest quickly. So, the blue wildebeest has got backwards sweeping horns. He is a very old guy. You can see those tips are very worn. His ears cocked forward. He might have just go in on the ears there quickly, Van. You can see how forward they cocked. He's heard something. He's cocked those ears right forward. But no, nothing too serious. So we said the backward facing horns of a blue wildebeest, so they sort of sweep backwards. And the black wildebeest, which occurs on the high veld, you can see there the horns very different shape. Even though the body shape is slightly different. You can still see the sort of wildebeest like that, but then the very distinct forward shaping horns on a black wildebeest. And there's the blue wildebeest. Now there's a few other wildebeest species around, or actually more subspecies, because they are able to mate with each other. And the wildebeest of East African fame and huge migration, a couple of million animals, they actually have a white beard and a white tail, even though they've got almost the exact same body shape as this guy we've been looking at. But now, a bit of a collective noun game, and definitely this Victorian or colonial collective noun comes from that mass migration in East Africa. And I'm going to see if anyone out there knows what it is. What is the old Victorian collective noun for answers through to questions down the cheetah cut line? Who knows what else we might find next? More general game, or possibly some lion tracks. Just a reminder to everyone, we have started earlier today. We're half an hour earlier than we were yesterday, and we are changing our times with or as we head into the summer months. And the reason we do that is to increase our chances to be out at what you see there, VM. To be out at what I call the magic times of the day. And what that does, it gives us a better chance of finding those apex predators on the move. So we'll be a half an hour earlier in the mornings and half an hour later in the evenings. So we saw something quite interesting yesterday. We saw a giraffe that had a broken ankle, and you could definitely see it trying not to put weight on it, but it was very difficult for that animal. And Kevin, ex-Ranger, and Lucy would like an update on that. Unfortunately, I don't have an update on it. It passed through into Arathusa, and I haven't been across to Arathusa for a while. If Scotty goes across, I'm sure you'll keep an eye out for it. But what I can do is speculate on its future, and probably not its immediate future. It might have more than likely survived the night, but with an injury like that, the chances of it surviving long term out here is very, very slim. And the two predators that are most likely to take advantage of a giraffe with an injury like that are lions and hyenas. Your social predators, it's too big for a leopard or a cheetah, but definitely falls within hyena, and we're just checking the road here quickly for tracks, but definitely falls within a hyena and lion's grasp. Fortunately, they are not fresh by any means, but it's from a while ago, but it is male lion tracks. I'll show you them quickly, but these are not fresh lion tracks. You can see the edges aren't that sharp, and they have been driven over. You got them there, Viam. There we go. And you can only see two tracks, the rest have been driven over, so not the most fresh tracks in the world. Steph's just getting hold of me on the radio. Standing by, Steph. We will do. So I'm just going to pass on a message for Steph, and could Final Control please contact Steph on channel 3, and hopefully that will be the last of that. We're going to continue on. Craig is in Torchwood checking the last position of those Birminghams, and he's just given me an update on the radio that the sticks actually came out from those properties south and have moved to the property just south of Arathusa, and they killed a kudu last night, and he's wondering whether possibly the Birminghams would have heard that commotion and have charged across there. So he's going to check if there are any tracks to the east of us. Oh, morning, Boggle. Don't run, don't run. Oh, there we go. So he's going to check if those tracks head towards that direction. We don't have any tracks coming west yet, but here we have a nice little male steenbok. So here we have a species that is not water dependent. They get almost all their moisture from at this time of the year, mostly from the dew in the mornings and from digging up bulbs of the grass species and other plants that will hold water through the dry season. So he's browsing off a little bush there at the base of that combretum. Actually looks like he's eating a little bit of the combretum. If we look carefully just below his eyes, we'll see there's a little dark patch. And what that is called is a pre-orbital gland, and a steenbok will use that for scent marking their territory. Very, very territorial. They'll stay in a very small territory of about 2 hectares, so probably around 4 acres, and monogamous. So a pair will stay in that area. And one of the few animals that will bury their feces, and the reason for this is because they stay in such a small territory. It's to try avoid detection by predators. Hiding behind the combretum. So the steenbok's name is actually a very, very Afrikaans name, and it basically means the brick antelope. So as when I say a brick, I mean literally a building brick, and that's the reason for that is that one of their defense mechanisms against predators. Sorry guys, just listen to this quickly on the radio. Update on the Birminghams, and we'll get back to the brick antelope shortly. The Birminghams have headed north, so unfortunately further away from our Traverse area, so we're going to continue on to see what else we can find. But back to the brick antelope. So the reason it's called a brick antelope or a steenbok is because of its defensive mechanism against other predators. So what they do is they keep dead still. So I've actually seen a wild dog sniff within about 30 centimeters of a little steenbokkie who's just doing this. Oh, I can't see, I don't want to see. And because it didn't run, and running triggers or movement triggers animals to chase it, so that is the reason that they do that, and that's how they got their name from Afrikaans, from a bucksteen, a brick, because they keep as still as a brick when predators are around. Not always, but that is one of their defense mechanisms against predators. One last look at this little guy. He's got quite small horns. I suppose everything's relative. For a steenbok, if you've got very large horns, they extend above the height of your ear. That's a very, very big steenbok male. So we're going to go from one of the smallest antelopes we get in the Sabi Sands to one of the largest antelopes we get in the Sabi Sands that I know a lot of you have been worried about and wondering why it's there.
Welcome back everyone, and from a tiny little steenbok to one of the largest antelope we get in this area, the kudu. Now this is the kudu at the Arathusa waterhole. You'll notice some infrastructure in the background, and the lodge overlooks this waterhole, and this kudu is on a small island. And it apparently has been here the whole of last night. Initially, as you came to this, you saw it was feeding on a few little bushes, but there's not a lot of food on this island, so I'm not too sure how plausible Brent's theory is now that I've taken a closer look at the island, and I'm almost convinced something gave this kudu a big fright, causing it to run through the water and seek refuge here. Now, what we've noticed, and what I'm sure a few of you have noticed who've been watching the Arathusa waterhole camera, is that it appears to be trying to find a way to cross. And it looks like it's happening right now. Can you believe it? It's crossing. Perfect timing. The kudu is about to set itself free. Well, isn't this incredible? It's been here the whole night, and just as we arrived, it finally plucked up the courage to cross back to the mainland. Well, maybe it was just a small amount of food that it was searching for here. I don't know. But at least all of you got to see this kudu get back to the mainland, and now it's going to have to try and locate the rest of its herd, as they are herd animals, not very large herds for the most part, but this female does have some catching up to do. Aren't we so lucky we got to see it set itself free? I wonder what time it came onto the island last night. If any of you could provide us with that information, it would be very useful. And I'm wondering if it just didn't feel too scared to cross the water in the darkness, and now that it has become light, it's become more confident. Lisa and Lynn have mentioned that the kudu didn't eat the whole night, so quite interesting that we did see it nibbling on what few bushes remain on this little island. And a lot of the time out here we cannot be exactly sure and account for exactly what these animals do, and this is a good example of that. We can run through as many theories as we like, but I'm not sure if we'll ever get to the bottom of why the kudu spent the night on the island. Interestingly enough, this kudu, you could say, is quite fortunate. There have been other antelope chased into this waterhole. One kudu, one impala, and I think one inyala. And they were most of the time chased in by wild dogs. And antelope will often seek refuge in water, away from predators, especially wild dogs. And kudu just making sure that the camp staff are doing a good job cleaning everything up there. And judging by the way it's running on, it's almost excited, you could say. Anyway, as I was saying, the few times antelope have been chased into the waterhole, there's been a hippo that has come charging in and killed them. Now, a hippo is completely vegetarian, yet in 3 different scenarios it's been seen to kill antelope and then just leave them floating in the water. So I'm glad this kudu didn't get the same treatment. I'm so happy that we were here just in time to show all of you it regaining its freedom. Okay, well, I think it's time to continue now, and the plan is to work the western boundary of Arethusa in the hope that we may find some sign of shadow, maybe the Anderson male or Tingana. So those 3 leopard have all been working and moving through this general area. Interestingly enough, thanks very much, Lynn, for sending us through this info. And apparently this kudu arrived at around 3:30 or 4 a.m. in the dark, and that to me is a great indicator that it crossed onto that island because it felt it needed to seek refuge and therefore was possibly being chased by a predator. A lot of you are interested for an update on what we think may have happened to the old and sick buffalo bull that we saw briefly last night. It had spent close to 24 hours at the Juma waterhole, and thank you again for your updates, alerting us to his presence and to his predicament. But sadly we've got no idea what may have happened to him. I think he could have survived the night, and the main reason for that is that there have been no lion on our property that we're aware of. Had there been lions nearby, it would have been a different scenario. But I must say, and like I did mention yesterday, there is a chance that even hyena could pick up on his weaknesses and try and kill him. Even if it takes 2 separate clans of hyena to join forces in killing a large animal like that, it can often happen that way. And if one hyena was to find that buffalo and notice that it was weak, it may start calling other hyenas within its clan, and then when they all arrive, they'll get so excited that they'll make such a noise that it could actually invite another clan through default into the area, and those combined clans could then do the job. And there's been some interesting research done on how hyenas can cooperate together. And I think a good example of that is the scenario that unfolded a few days ago, or probably over a week ago now, with the Nkahuma Pride at their buffalo kill that they made on Elephant Plains, which is to the west of us. And there was a lot of hyena that all started vocalizing, and I'm guessing 2 different clans came into that area, and the combination of the power from those 2 clans allowed them to then chase the lions away from their kill. No confirmation that it is 2 separate clans, but I'm guessing that it probably was. tricky thing about following up on individual animals like that buffalo bull is that it's a very large area that we explore every day, and it's not as easy as just driving into an area and finding whatever animal you're looking for. And who knows, we may never see that buffalo again. A lot of hyena tracks up and down this road, but hyena move huge distances every night in search of food, more than most other animals. Last station copying you 1 out of 5. Well, good morning to Blair in British Columbia. Good to have you with us. Blair has been following WildEarth for quite some time now, and she's pointed out that a few years ago we used to film in an area called Thorny Bush. That was long before my time, and Blair's interested to know where exactly Thorny Bush is. And Blair, it's probably about 50 or 60 kilometers to the north of us. Oh, we haven't stopped in the best spot yet. I just thought I'd roll forward a little bit, but you will be able to notice this hornbill has a red beak, unlike the yellow beak of the yellow-billed hornbill, and it's slightly smaller but quite similar looking, other than the difference in beak color. And Blair, Thorny Bush is an area where I've spent very little time, but I do know it's a completely fenced-in reserve. I'm not sure of its size, but it's not open to the Greater Kruger National Park as far as I'm aware. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when there are fences around all sides of your property, it means that you're often in a highly managed area, because the animals do not have bring in new genes, because naturally that cannot happen because the ecosystem is too small and therefore not natural. Well, not entirely natural. Whereas the Greater Kruger Park, which is what we form a part of here in the Sabi Sands, we latched onto the side of it, a tiny speck. The Sabi Sands is only 65,000 hectares of 3 million which make up the Greater Kruger National Park. Now, we did get an update that there was a leopard calling somewhere close to the Arathusa waterhole, and I think I've just found you his tracks. It's tracks of a male leopard, and this is exciting stuff. Tracks are just down to our right over here. As you can see, there's one and another one up ahead, and this is a large male leopard, maybe the Anderson male. And if any of you could let us know what time last night you heard the last calls, that would be really useful to know how far we are behind this animal. But at least we know which direction he's heading in, and he's heading straight south down this road called East Side Marakeni. And it's called East Side Marakeni because we are on the eastern side of the Marakeni riverbed. Just hear a squirrel alarm calling down here. We'll go and take a closer look. It could be at any kind of a predator. Even though the leopard track said down there, maybe he's veered off. Let's see if we can find the squirrel and get an idea of where it's looking and what it's looking at. We're getting closer to it. Please be a leopard here. Squirrel. It sounded like somewhere up in these trees to our right here. What it is, I'm just going to creep around this next corner so we can look further down the riverbed. Okay, well, nothing to see down the riverbed. And the squirrel has gone quiet. Anything hiding under those bushes? Not that it looks like. And the fact that the squirrel has gone silent means that we don't have the help that we initially could have had, but what it also means is that whatever threat was here has probably moved off. I've been as close as probably 1.5 meters away from a squirrel on foot, which is what they're not used to, so they'll typically be more concerned of our presence if we're standing that close to them compared to being in a vehicle. And even still, because that squirrel was so focused on trying to alert everyone to a potential threat, it didn't run off. And I was quite amazed by the fact that it allowed me to get so close. And what it helped us to find was a genet that morning. And some of you may remember that, but what the point of that is that even though we've driven here, I don't think the squirrel stopped because it's scared of us. If the threat was still here, it would have continued to call. Okay, well, good news. We're going to send you across to Brent because he's found another set of leopard tracks that he would like to show you, and that way we can focus on trying to find this big male for you.
Welcome back, everyone. What looks like both Scotty and I are the only tracks we've managed to find this morning are leopard. We are looking for one of everyone's favorites, young Sindile. And being young Sindile, the tracks are literally crisscrossing this whole area. So we're busy playing check the termite mound first before I go walking. So welcome, you're welcome to come join me as we search every termite mound in this area to see if he's possibly not perched atop of one watching us at the moment. So we're going to keep looking this side. Hopefully he is this side, not on the termite mound on that side. Oh, corrugations. We did find some tracks that are a little bit further than we've seen them before, but I thought before we go start checking around there, we're just going to check this whole area very thoroughly.
left hand side about this 4 inches down it. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to check, and here we go. He's definitely come back this way. So I'm just going to show you these tracks that I'm going to follow on quickly. So I'm pretty certain these are young Sindile's tracks. You can just see them. Probably this is going to be the most clear one here. And being young Sindile, he's probably watching me right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take a little stroll quickly. Hopefully I'm going to be able to find him. And while I do that, we're going to cross back to Scotty so he can give you an update on the tracks he's been following.
Welcome back, everyone, and you can just see a glimpse of the same kudu that was stuck on the island, and we've got a brief glimpse of it crossing the road and now continuing into some thick bush. Like I said, it's going to be very focused on looking for the rest of its herd. And let's hope it doesn't take it too long to find them. Good. Well, let's hope that Brent has some luck tracking down Sindile, a young male leopard, while we continue in pursuit of a large male. His tracks are no longer on this road that he was heading down that I can see, although no, here they are. They still are going down this road. We still are heading in the right direction, and let's hope he's not too far ahead of us. Because from Madonna Ingwe head south from Seepspan. One problem that we may face is that we are heading towards the southern boundary of Arathusa, and this animal may cross out, but that's just a little warning. Oh, it looks like some elephants have been busy at work here. We just got a question through from Anna Marie, and she's interested to know, how will this kudu go about finding the rest of its herd? Will it be from scent, hearing? And I think it'll be mainly scent and gut feel. They don't really have vocal communications that they call out to one another in order to reunite. And I'm guessing it may well be following the scent trail, or may know the habits of its herd and where it may have gone. So kind of a little bit of past history and knowledge of how the herd works, and the scent trail of the herd will be the most likely ways that it manages to relocate them. So this is a weeping wattle bush. It's got very, very soft leaves and can be used as bush toilet paper. Even though the leaves are very small, if you combine enough layers of them together, it becomes very soft, and you could compare it to a premium brand of toilet paper, not a cheap single ply, but that is only enough if you pile enough of them on top of one another. And Usually there's not too many animals that will feed on these, and this one doesn't look to have been fed on very much, but an elephant may have broken this down in order to feed on 1 or 2 branches, or just to show its size and strength. Have any animals been located on safari this morning? Sorry, go again? Copy that, thanks very much. Do you mind if I join you there? Well, that was a stroke of fortune. Someone was actually close enough for me to actually be able to copy them, and they've got some animals not too far from us, where we've actually just been. So hold on, we need to get there. Oh, wrong gear. What we will do is, once we have finished viewing these animals just ahead of us, we will continue following the tracks of that male leopard. Morning everyone, how's it before? How are you doing? So that was the guy that alerted us to the animals which were just up ahead of us. I got a brief glimpse of them moving away, and we should get another view of them shortly. The tricky thing about these animals is that they move very quickly through the bush. There we go. I'm told that there's 4 of these spotted hyena, and they all look fairly full-bellied. It looks like they may have had a successful night. And maybe it was them that chased the kudu onto the island. It looks quite muddy and wet, and I'm not sure what it would have been doing in the water so early this morning. Maybe quenching their thirst. They do quite often spend time in water. They're not averse to water like lions and leopards, and will even lie in water during the summer months when it's very hot. So they'll do that to keep cool. See if we can loop ahead of them and get you another quick view. I think we should have a little gap just ahead of us here that may get us closer to where we need to be. Not looking promising at this stage. I think they may have crossed through a riverbed to our left. Have you got them there, Brian?
Yeah, I saw them go that way across there.
Okay. I think those hyena, like I said, are full-bellied and have had a successful night out and are now going to be heading back to their den.
Yeah, one just slipped over the hill there.
Okay, well spotted, Brian. Brian just saw another one disappear, and sadly we cannot follow any further west of this position. We are on our western boundary, which is marked by this riverbed in front of us. Well, at least you did get a glimpse of the hyena. And it's not often that we get to see them unless they're at a kill or their den sites. So to bump into them randomly in the bush is usually short-lived. No different to the sighting we just had now. Making a bit of a meal of this. 20-point turn. There we go. Now, back towards the last tracks that we had of that male leopard. Those hyena that we've just seen could well have been the ones that were part of the sighting I spoke of a little bit earlier, where huge amounts of hyena. One guide said 18, the other said 30. So somewhere between 18 and 30 hyena chased off the Nkuhuma pride and Shimungwe pride of lion, all who were around the same kill, and proceeded to finish the whole buffalo that the Nkuhuma pride had actually killed. And this is the area that it happened in, further west of us. And hyena are highly territorial animals, and there are even some reports that suggest they are so territorial that even when hunting prey, if they run into a neighboring clan's territory, often hyena will jam on brakes on this invisible line, which is to them their boundary. Really would love to get another view of the Anderson male, and at least a decent one for all of you. We've only seen him twice. The first sighting was probably better than the second, which is hard to believe, because the second sighting, it wasn't the Anderson male alone. Him and Tingana, another male leopard, were having an argument over land, fighting for territory. And it was actually in this very area that we're going through now. To our left, about 50 meters away, was where we did see Tingana mainly, and the Anderson male very briefly in the same sighting. They were a little bit far apart and not getting up to too much when we were there. But this was the area where the show went down. been a lot of interesting movements of the leopards in the last few weeks and months, and one of those interesting movements have been that of Shadow, a female leopard who has been seen mating with Tingana and the Anderson male. And Ellen, one of our leopard IDing experts, has asked whether or not there are any further updates on Shadow and her last movements. As far as we're aware, Ellen, she mated with Tingana for 3 days, Anderson male for 1 day. Then I think we found her here the following day after she was seen mating with the Anderson male, and she was calling a lot, and since then we personally haven't seen her. But one of the guides from Elephant Plains said yesterday morning that he saw her following the Anderson male who was mating with another female, and some of the guides said it was possibly the Shimpalapala female, but that was not confirmed. And Ottawa is a property where I actually used to be able to drive around, and it's to the west and south of us, southwest of us. And that was the last update we've heard. So who knows where she could be now. Sadly, the radio network here is not very reliable, so it's difficult to be sure or not whether her tracks have or have not been found this morning. But we will be sure to keep you updated on any further updates on where she might be. Ideally, we would find her for all of you shortly, and that way we'll know exactly what's going on. So this male leopard tracks appear to have veered off this road that he was heading down. Will continue in this general direction. Maybe he's veered off, maybe he's made a kill, or he's lying in a termite mound nearby. Now we've got a question through from Lynn in Michigan, and she's not asking about Shadow, the mother of Sandile, she's asking about Sandile himself. And she's mentioned that because Shadow doesn't very often hoist her kills into tree, has that been bad training for Sandile, or will he instinctively know to hoist kills into trees? Well, two things there. She does hoist kills into trees, just not very often, and not very often recently, and that could simply be because the kills have been too big. Having said that though, I've spent time with a female leopard called the Ravenscourt female, who is no longer alive, but I saw her and her cubs and various litters that she raised for many years when I was working in the Sabi Sands, where I first started guiding just south of here. And that's when I could traverse Ottawa and Ravenscourt and Sparta, 3 properties to the south and west of us. And she also was terrible at hoisting kills. She would some days, she wouldn't other days, even if it was a small kill. But all of her cubs would hoist kills thereafter, so I don't think we have anything to worry about there, and I think it just comes down to the individual. And I think we don't have to be concerned that Sandile has not had any training of hoisting. So, just to update you on Brent and his tracking escapades, he sadly has not had any luck, but we are going to send you across to him for a quick update as to exactly what he thinks going on over there, and we will see you again shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. Still checking this area for young Sindile. I walked through and climbed the trail. Then we'll start again. I'm quite sure those tracks night drive last.
Welcome back, and I'm not sure how much of Brent's update you managed to get, but I'm sure he's going to keep trying his best to find young Sindile, as we are going to continue trying to find just about anything that offers itself to us at this stage. I don't think we can be too fussy this morning. It appears like not many of the guides have had much luck in locating anything. But it's still early and things could change. So don't go anywhere. I'm heading towards the construction site that is the Arathusa airstrip, so if you're interested in an update on how the new airstrip is coming along, that's something you can look forward to, but that's just about all that I can guarantee you at this stage. The sun's beginning to rise up a little bit higher. I'm feeling slightly warmer and enjoying it, the effect it's having on us. There's a thin layer of haze and clouds that's somewhat diluting the effect that it is having on us. Well, one thing that Brent has assumed is that because Shadow's been away for quite some time now, Sindile has taken it upon himself to kind of increase the area that he's been hanging around in, and that makes perfect sense. It'll give him more prey options, and I'm guessing he also must be quite thirsty. I'm not sure when last he had a drink, but I think it was quite some time ago. Now, a lot of you will be happy to hear that I've found tracks that I'm guessing are belonging to Shadow. I'm almost certain they're hers, judging by her size, and we are heading in the right direction to relocate with Sindile. We're still quite a way off, but those are some fairly fresh tracks of a female, and this is her territory. So Let's hope that this is Shadow, and let's hope that we can find her just up ahead down the road. Surely not. Could they have already disappeared off this road? Or is she just walking in a strange part of it? Well, her tracks have already veered off the road, but I feel she may have maybe veered off ever so slightly to scent mark on one of the big marula trees that are prominent in this area. I think she's lying down somewhere right here. Well, when tracking, especially in our scenario where we can't leave the vehicle for too long, otherwise you guys will be left behind, it's best to just continue traveling in the general direction, and that way hopefully you'll find some further track up ahead. We are on our southern boundary of Arethusa here, so we cannot go any further right, and I'm hoping if anything she's headed further to the left, north into south, or to the right. There's nothing we can do about it. Just goes to show how important it is to keep our eyes on the road. Those tracks were only on early, but we used to bend. Grim.
Under every quarry bush, and we've checked a little bit wider, and we still haven't found. We had those fresh tracks sometime from during the night. We're just going to go back into that area and see if we can have a look to where Liam and James left him last night. Maybe he's moved his way back there. I've walked through this whole area to the south of us, and I saw steenbok and korans and zebra and impala, but no sindile. So maybe he's down this side, or possibly he might have crossed out of our area. Hopefully not, but we will keep checking. We're just going to keep quiet here for a few minutes, and maybe we might hear a squirrel alarm calling or Franklin exploding at the charge of young Sindile. Oh, we've got a little steenbokkies wandering out into the road. So I'm sure quite a few of you are wondering when Sindile might drink, or how much he needs to drink. Specifically Miss Jin and Kathy, and he doesn't actually need to drink. Leopards are not water dependent animals. They will take advantage of water when it is available. On a sunrise safari a few mornings ago, when we were with Sindile, we watched him licking the dew off some of the grass and trees, so he can get moisture from that. But an animal like a leopard will, if it doesn't have easy availability to water, will actually get its moisture from the animals they kill. So they will get their water content from the blood of the other animals. So leopard is not a water dependent animal. Saying that, they will definitely drink when it is available. The area where he has been left, there is no water really close by. The closest water is the treehouse waterhole. So maybe that's a plan. Maybe we should go have a look in that area. But maybe he has decided now to leave this little spot and move off to have a drink. So let's go have a look around the treehouse waterhole. Sorry about that, guys. It really seems that the gremlins are playing havoc with us this morning, and we've just been chatting about water holes. And Mealy from California, who's new to asking questions, welcome, is wondering whether most of the animals have moved out of this area to look for larger water holes. Mealy, I don't think so. I think we've actually had an influx of animals into this area. We've got a lot more sort of zebra and waterbuck that have moved in here, because there are some permanent water holes on the property, and we're definitely seeing a lot more elephants as well because of the water holes. And so we've actually had an influx of animals. If I had to say, during the summer months, animals will move in and out. There's pans, which are little depressions that are filled by rain that have always have water in them. At the moment now, there are only a very few areas that have permanent water. So if anything, we've had an influx of animals, and we're going to head to one of those water holes right now. It is drying really quickly, but there is water in there, so there will be animals utilizing it as a drinking spot. And what we're hoping is that young male leopard we're looking for has moved towards that water hole. No tracks coming out here. But the last tracks I did have that I assumed to be the most fresh were heading east, and that is towards the direction of the treehouse waterhole. So guys, I'm just going to be listening to the radio for a second. Okay guys, just a quick update on the Inkahumas. And the Inkahumas have crossed straight north into the Manuleti. There we go. We've got a bit of a spider web there. And so they've crossed straight north into the Manuleti, and that could be because the Birminghams have headed into Buffalo's Hook. They were right up on the sort of northeastern boundary of the Manuleti. And there we go, that's hyena tracks in the road, not the leopard we're looking for. So we've been chatting quite a bit about water, and we just chatted about the fact that leopards are not water dependent, and the same goes for lions. So Edward was wondering, is there any noticeable physical differences between a lion that drinks water regularly and one that doesn't, and the same for a leopard? Edward, not at all. They do, as I said, if there is water available, all lions will drink. So even those desert lions, if they do have access to water, they will drink it. Otherwise, they'll just get their water from the prey they kill. Sorry, I just heard a I think it was just a testicular making some noise, so false alarm. We had such a wonderful sighting of that male wildebeest really up close to the vehicle earlier on the Sunrise Safari, and I asked what was the original sort of Victorian collective noun for a wildebeest, and it definitely refers to that large migration, that massive migration in East Africa, and Lily and Georgian and a few others also got it spot on. And that is an implausibility of wildebeest, which I think is quite a good one. So we saw that lone wildebeest bull this morning. He's probably a dominant bull and he holds territory around there, and he'll wait for the ladies to come in and out of his territory. But Kerry from Santa Ana is wondering, do male wildebeests, once they sort of retire, I assume like the buffalo bulls, once they're pushed out of the breeding herds, do they form bachelor groups like the buffalo bulls? Very long way away, but I can hear lions. Very far, well off our property. Sorry about that, Kerry. I got quite excited hoping they were a bit closer. They sound like they're opposite Buffelshoek Dam, but in Buffelshoek itself. So quite a long way away. I just heard that faint well, didn't get that loud, so it was very faint. But Kerry, the wildebeest do not form bachelor groups. Pretty much once they're pushed out of their territories, they run around nomadically on the edge of other males' territories till they get snacked on by something. Young males, though, will sometimes form small bachelor groups of 2 or 3 while they're still trying to establish themselves. But generally not. They don't band together like those old buffalo bulls. Lots of impala around us, and zebra off in the distance. Now, we chatted, now we've got some zebra. It's not the best sighting of zebra as they go through there, but I've got a really nice traditional African folklore about zebra. We'll just have a quick look before we continue on. You can see how those stripes do work as camouflage. Here we go. And so it's said that when the Creator was handing out all the different horns and hooves and coats, all the animals were actually sort of a very dull grey, plain looking, and the Creator decided to bestow on them a whole various set of different horns and hooves and skins to make them look prettier or make them feel better about themselves. And the story goes that the zebra, and this probably is due to the fact that the zebra always looks like he's very well fed and he's very round due to their digestive system, being hind gut fermenters, they create a lot of gas, so they always look like they're well fed. And the zebra was considered to be a glutton by the other animals. Head down, eating the nice grass all the time, not really worried about too much else. So when the decree from the creator was said that all the animals should meet at said cave to have a look and choose their different appendages, all the animals were really, really excited, and they set off at first light. And a lot of them stopped by Zebra and said, "Zebra, aren't you coming?" He's like, no, I'll come just now. I'm just going to carry on eating." And Zebra's main focus in life was only eating. And eventually, after about 4 or 5 hours, after all the other animals had gone through to collect their tails and their horns and their skins, and Zebra decided, well, breakfast was done. I'll meander across. And on the way to the cave, Zebra found some more nice green grass, so he decided to eat again. And while he was moving towards the cave, Zebra met some of the other animals. And Zebra met Rhino, who wasn't very bright and sort of chose some very strange things. He chose 2 horns that weren't the same height, and instead of putting them on his head, he put them on his nose. And he chose a very big baggy skin, even though he thought he looked quite wonderful. The rest of the animals thought he looked quite ridiculous. But because he was so big and grumpy, they all told him how wonderful he looked. And Rhino was sort of strutting in front of Zebra. Zebra didn't even lift up its head, just carried on munching on the green grass. As Zebra continued on, he met Kudu. And Kudu had chosen probably one of the nicest outfits. He had chosen a nice sort of tan skin that could hide in the bush from the lions. He had chosen spectacular horns to challenge for females and to defend himself against other animals. And Zebra again sort of and carried on walking. And eventually Zebra was the last to arrive at the cave. And the only thing left was this black and white stripy coat. All the other animals thought it looked a bit ridiculous, so they had no real interest in it. And Zebra didn't really mind, popped on the coat and walked out. And all the other animals carried on laughing at Zebra. Zebra didn't really care, sort of, and carried on eating the nice green grass. And that's why, if they say to this day, Zebra, you almost always find them with their heads down, munch, 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 always looking very well fed. The zebra has always been more interested in eating than what he looks like. So we've got no tracks coming out yet. This is where Sandile's last tracks were heading, but quite far from here. Not to say he hasn't moved through the block to the south of us, but we will definitely go have a look around the waterhole. So we chatted about bulk grazers and selective grazers, like a zebra being a bulk grazer and a wildebeest a very selective grazer, and how grass heights can impact animals and their nutrition and basically lifespans and that. And Jim from another sunny part of the world in Fresno, California, said while he was on safari in Kenya a few years ago, they came across a buffalo that was said to have died of starvation because the grass around it was incorrect, and he would like to know if this is possible. Jim, it's very possible, and depending where in Kenya would make the big difference. So whether it was a French reserve or whatnot, or if it was out in the Mara, it is possible. It is unlikely in that area, unless the buffalo was very, very old and wasn't able to move into a better grazing area. But I mean, you can take a domestic cow or a buffalo and you put it in a paddock with grass that looks wonderful and it's all this high and whatnot, and that animal will die in a matter of weeks. So most of your long and tall grass has already climaxed, so it's already seeded and whatnot, and most of it is dead. And it will only start really growing properly from the growth points, depending on where you are, whether it's grazed. And buffalo being a bulk grazer, it seems to be a little bit suspicious to me. Buffalo will eat even much longer grass than the selective grazers. It would have to be a really, really bad year and very strange circumstances for that to happen. But the buffalo will bulk graze, so it'll eat even some of that dead stuff and get some nutritional value from it. And that's why big herds of buffalo have to move so much at this time of the year. But it is possible, but just very unlikely. The other thing that sort of spurns grass's growth points, and this to a lot of people would seem counterintuitive, but it's fire. The majority of the sort of grasslands and savannas of southern and East Africa, and to a greater extent northwest Africa, the Sahel and those areas, are what you call fire climax biomes. And what that means is that a lot of plant species and a lot of grass species actually need fire. So basically what happens is that the fire will remove the moribund, the dead grass, the sort of no nutritional value, the dead cellulose, and it will spurn on growth points. And a lot of people think fire might kill grass, but it doesn't. Almost all grass, their growth points are actually below the surface of the ground. And what else a fire does is it burns off a lot of the little bushes and stuff and trees that might be stopping the grass getting enough sun, as well as adding carbon back into the ground and creating a bit of a fertilizer. So fire is very important, and it has been used as a tool in Africa since man first managed to master the use of fire. And the East African savannas and open grasslands are a really, really good point of this. The Maasai have been using fire for years and years and years to affect grazing. So basically, if you burn just before the end of the dry season, now this depends. It's not a fixed rule, and you need to take into account how dry it is, if we're going to have a good rainy season and stuff like that. Obviously, in the olden days when there were no fences and not that many people, most of the fires were caused by lightning, and they could burn an area 3 times the size of the whole Sabi Sands. The animals would just move out of that. Obviously the animals now do not have that choice, so that's why there's controlled burning. But the Maasai to this day still burn, and not only, but mostly for their cattle. So they'll burn an area and then the rain will come, and then that nice lush green grass, which is very good for animals and full of nutrients, will come up, and they'll graze their cattle on it. And wild animals in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti will also take advantage of that. And speaking of the glutton, there's some gluttons that look like they've already come and had a drink here at the Treehouse Waterhole. Unfortunately, no leopard tracks or tracks of young Sindile coming down here yet. And one of the most amazing things, if you look at a lot of places in Africa where there have been a relatively long standing human habitation, so before colonial times, man-controlled fire has made a lot of parts of Africa what they are today. I mean, if you take the central African rainforests, specifically in the Congo and Gabon along the coastal plain, you have these very strange open grasslands right back from the sand dunes. And strangely enough, those were all man-made, cleared and burned and cleared and burned and cleared and burned. And now that they are open grasslands right on the edge of one of the most impenetrable rainforests in the world. And these were made by people who disappeared. And we find a lot of artifacts and sign of people there, but these people disappeared they reckon probably 20,000 years ago, maybe even a little bit earlier. So very, very interesting. And there was sort of a gap where these people disappeared, and then later, much later, sort of a couple of thousand years gap before the next people moved into this area, and they were called basically the King of Congo, which is quite a funny thing because he didn't even live in Congo. He lived in what is today northern Angola, and that kingdom was a very narrow kingdom, but it ran the whole coastal belt of Central Africa, from northern Angola, from around where the Cabinda enclave is in Angola now, where Angola produces most of its oil, all the way through nearly to the Cameroon border. So an incredibly long coastline, but very narrow. And eventually it got too big, so the most northern sort of chieftains or generals, or what would you call them, provincial managers, decided, well, the king's so far away, we're going to make ourselves kings. And that's how different kingdoms on that Central African and West African coast developed, like the Luongo kingdom, which ran from middle of Congo all the way through just to the Cameroon border. Again, because of the impenetrable rainforest that was behind them, these kingdoms were very, very narrow and were only sort of 20 kilometers from the beach inland. And one of their main businesses was slaving, strangely enough. So they would go inland and raid other people who lived inland, and take those people out and then sell them through to European slavers coming through, or to Arab slavers. And also ivory and to a lesser extent gold and rubber were all harvested in that belt and then sold through to Europeans and Arabs, traders that were coming through that area. The most fascinating thing is, because that rainforest takes over so quickly, and you can see where there was an open area that's disappeared, and that can disappear in a couple of hundred years if it isn't burnt and kept open by people, that a lot of the artifacts and stuff from that era sort of just disappear into that morass, that thick interesting ones are all along the coast. And with the sea levels where they are currently, the most important archaeological sites are probably, most of them, 30 to 40 meters under the water. So at a stage, the sea levels have changed quite a lot, and so there are lots of gaps in sort of the early human history in most parts of the world because of rising sea levels, because a lot of the original hunter-gatherer sort of Stone Age and Iron Age peoples would have utilized the coastal plain, and specifically the coast itself, as a very, very important part and a very easy place to gather protein from shellfish and different things in the rock pools and that. And all those are actually now quite deep under the water, and there are very few sort of caves and stuff. And there's a very famous one in the Western Cape, if I remember correctly, Grootbos, that gives us a sort of slight glimpse into that. In this area where we are currently, I found quite a lot of pottery and stuff, but nothing too old. I think the oldest pottery I found actually was a little bit north of here. It's about 800 years old, that I sent off to the University of Pretoria to have looked at. And that was in an old termite mound. And the termite mounds and the aardvark holes were not only being utilized by animals like porcupines, hyenas, wild dogs. They were utilized by sort of a Stone Age and early Iron Age man in Africa as kilns, as an oven. So they would blast and make fires in those old aardvark holes to create pottery and stuff like that. And generally the pottery you find around those old kilns is the pottery that didn't work, so lots of different pieces. And the older the pottery, the more basic the pottery, so no decorations and whatnot. And as sort of man became slightly more developed in this area and more sedimentary, so with a base and growing crops and that rather than more nomadic, you will notice that art sort of takes place, and suddenly there's delicate little drawings and patterns and such things worked onto the pottery. So it's very, very interesting to watch the sort of progression of man in this area. And further north, there's sort of I don't know what you would call it. We call them sort of we just normally name them after a petrol station, but it's sort of a petrol station on the highways that has petrol and a fast food joint and bathrooms and a break. Now these existed 2,000 years ago here, but very, very differently. specifically on a main trading route well north of us here, between what would have been sort of, I don't know if any of you know about Great Zimbabwe and Mapungubwe, were two walled cities in Africa, and they've been trading there with Arabs for many thousands of years. There's a very famous golden rhino that comes from Mapungubwe. But on these trading routes, although they had gold and other such things in these areas, they lacked probably one of the most important thing to Iron Age man, and that is iron. So people would travel long distances to visit ironsmiths and to buy iron or collect iron ore. And along these major trading routes, you had these sort of one-stop motel, petrol station, food, and on that, basically, they were always on Inselbergs. Those of you not sure what Inselbergs are, they are sort of mountains that just pop up. They're individual. They stand alone from another mountain range. And quite often they have a sandstone section where there'll be an undercut and cliffs and stuff like that. And there's an amazing one that I've been lucky enough to visit, probably about 300 kilometers north of here on private land. So it's very difficult to get permission to go there. But basically it's this undercut cave, and it's sort of the precursor to the modern day motel or road stop. And there are pots, literally my height, so 6 foot, 7 foot in height, these pots that would have held maize and other whatnot. There was sleeping areas, and it would have worked as a stopover, so people would have run it as a business. And you find things like cowrie shells 600 kilometers inland, which was an old form of currency here in Africa, as well as beads that would have been traded with the Arab nations that were trading all the way down the coast of Mozambique. And you do find sort of things that are not supposed to be here, and I know, so it's a very, very interesting thing. And we can chat about this literally for the whole drive, and we can go through the history, even to the modern history, which James knows quite a bit better than me, about the Shangans and the Zulus. And basically, if I remember correctly, James might have to double check. I'll double check with James when we get back. But the Shangan people, or the Tsonga people, used to live further south towards an area called Cozy Bay. There are still some Tsonga tribes there. But at the beginning of the Zulu sort of kingdom, they were pushed north. And the Shangans basically get the name from Shishangan, which was one of their chiefs. And basically Shishangan is a place. I actually used to live inside the Kruger when I worked at the Kruger, and it means to put the children down. So that's where they stopped running from the Zulu nation and settled in this area. So fascinating history. And I mean, we can go all the way from sort of 2.4 million years ago and Sterkfontein all the way up into very recent history. And there's still been quite a lot of turmoil in recent history with the advent of the Europeans arriving. But enough of that. Let's get back to the animals. It looks like the gluttons are coming down for a drink. Since we're sitting at the waterhole and waiting for the zebras to come down and have a drink, and we have been discussing the fact that certain predators are not water dependent, Gary would like to know what other animals in this area are not water dependent. Well, those of you who've been watching the sunrise safari this morning, we've actually seen another one of the non-water dependent animals, and that is a steenbok. So a steenbok is not water dependent. Strangely enough, on the thing of predators, hyena are water dependent. So that's quite interesting. Spotted hyena are water dependent. Brown hyena are not. Let me just think a little bit. One must remember that all the non-water dependent animals will drink water when it is available. But you'll find a lot of your small carnivores, genets, civets, are not water dependent and are often found in very, very arid areas of Africa. Most carnivores are able to get enough moisture from what they eat. So hyena is almost an exception to the rule in that case. It always amazes me that how careful animals are approaching a waterhole. Always have a look around, take their time before they approach the waterhole. Now, we were chatting a little bit earlier. I was asked what was the biggest group or dazzle of zebra I'd ever seen. And I said probably 400 to 500 zebra drinking at once on the Boteti River in northern Botswana. And even that mass of animals sort of stops and does this as they approach the water till one drinks, and then it's literally this wave of zebras that pop into the water. So the zebras are about to drink, and the first one is right there. And see, as soon as one drinks, the others move in a little bit quicker. Guys, try to get some screenshots of that. There's an absolutely lovely reflection. While these zebras quench their thirst, Scott's got something a little bit strange, so we're going to cross across to him quickly, but we will stay here in case the zebras keep drinking for a while.
Well, welcome back, everyone. And look at these two waterbuck bulls. Gently nuzzling one another. It could actually be the initial parts of them sizing one another up, and it could break out into a fight. There's 5 waterbuck bulls here, but we're going to keep focused on these two who currently have their horns locked. Initially when we came across them, they were all minding one another's business, and then these two slowly, very gently started nuzzling one another's heads. But a lot of the time the antelope will actually be quite gentle, and visual displays of dominance will often be enough to prevent them getting into a full-blown fight. Or that could have merely just been friendship that we witnessed. We have found more tracks of, in all likelihood, Shadow, this female leopard. She probably walked directly where these waterbuck are walking now, but in the opposite direction, still heading north and east in the general direction of where she left her cub Sindile. So maybe they have reunited. But we're going to send you back to Brent with the zebra and continue tracking down this female leopard, hopefully with some luck.
So we're back with the zebras, who actually just got a bit of a fright, not sure what, and with all their heads down drinking, they suddenly jumped up and leapt. And it pays to be a bit cautious when at a water hole with your head down, in case there is a lion stalking you. Okay guys, I'm just going to take my jacket off. It's warmed up very quickly in the last few minutes. can see how they're constantly lifting their heads just to make sure there's no possible danger around. And when the one on the far right pops its head down again, so there we go. I'm just gonna, those of you wondering what that noise is, it's just me getting a few snaps. There we go. If we get tight in there, VM, it's quite a nice screenshot before he lifts his head. If you, oh, there we go. But oh, it disappeared. But with that one zebra eye between the other twos, there we go. I can show you what I was talking about. It's just quite an interesting shot. There we go. Is that okay there, Van? You can see, I do love the patterns of zebra. They are such a great photographic subject. But the zebras have finished their drink, and we are going to maneuver on, see what else we can find. So obviously the name Treehouse Dam can be quite disconcerting, and Charlie and Anne-Marie are wondering, was there actually ever a treehouse here, and is anyone planning on putting up another one? I know there is one. I'm going to have a quick look in these trees. Liam, have you seen it before? Yeah, it's that marula there.
Yeah,
a plank. So there definitely was, but there is no plan to build another one at the moment. We'll show you where it was now. I know Scott has showed it to you guys before. So I can see the planks from here, or what was left of the treehouse. You probably find it just slowly disintegrated from the elements. So there we go. VM's going to show you in that marula tree. And for us out here, I think it'd be very different from what you would call a treehouse back home. It probably would have just been a flat deck rather than an actual house, so it would have been open to the elements. It just would have been some planks and a small deck up in the tree. So I think one of the interesting things that's going to happen today, and I think you guys might have been picking up on it, is that now it's dry and it's warm, the animal behavior is changing slightly, and specifically with the elephants. And you'll notice we haven't been seeing too many elephants on the sunrise safaris, but we have been finding them regularly on the sunset safaris. So you probably found they've spread out quite far from the water to feed during the evening, and as it gets warm, sort of from 10-11 o'clock, they start making their way towards the water holes, and they'll drink and then again move. Sorry guys, let me just look very strange there for a second. No, false alarm. So the elephants are going to be utilizing the water more during the heat of the day. Not all the elephants, but quite a few of the breeding herds. And that's because they are traveling distance to feed and then coming back during the heat of the day to quench their thirsts. We've got you might notice generally quite a lot of the people you see out in the bush are of a certain age. Miss Sousa from California has just noticed that other than Mark, all the guides and rangers seem to be quite young. Is there a reason for this? Is this something people do at a certain age? And what do they generally do later in their careers? Well, Masuda, you are correct to a degree, and a lot of the guides that are working at the commercial properties or living in the bush can be quite young. And there is a general tendency that after a certain while, certain things become a little bit more important than being out in the bushes. And it generally, when you find guides leaving the bush, it is, if it's a lady guide, it's generally a man. If it's a male guide, it's generally a girlfriend who will encourage them to probably find a little bit more stable employment. Well, not stable, but a sort of 9 to 5, not working weeks on end and then off for weeks, for 2 weeks at a time. And so generally there happens to be a sort of a younger generation guiding in the lodges on a permanent basis. After that, there's quite a few different avenues. Quite a lot of the ex-guides I know have stayed within the sort of tourism industry, but they've moved into sales and marketing or something like that, sort of at a head office base in Johannesburg, and will do sales trips and things like that. I tried it very briefly, it wasn't for me. I don't think I'm ever going to leave the bush. Then the other avenue, what happens with guides who've been guiding for quite a long time, and strange enough also do that, we go into private guiding. So what private guiding is you're not based at any particular lodge. You will have guests who request to have you personally on safari, and quite often it could be guests who've taken on safari somewhere else before. And for example, one of my trips I did, was it last year? Or before Gabon or after Gabon, I can't really remember. It was with guests that had been on safari with me 4 times previously at different lodges. And we did an epic trip. We did a 2-week trip, and we started in Cape Town and we ended in Kenya, and visiting different various lodges and places along the way. Obviously, private guiding is quite a lot more, from a tourist point of view, quite a lot more expensive to have a private guide. You do have a very different experience, but as a private guide, he's with you for your whole trip. If anything goes wrong, your bags go missing, anything, he's there to sort it out, and he'll have breakfast, lunch and dinner with you, and we'll spend that whole time with you. And depending on the area, you will have a guide from a lodge, but you'll also have a private guide, so it makes quite a difference. And the once people start private guiding, they've generally got a lot of experience and been and worked in different countries, so are able to guide people through different countries and even into places they haven't been, because they sort of have a good understanding of what's around. And the most important thing about being a guide, strangely enough, which a lot of people don't realize, is most guides will have a good basic understanding of the bush and whatnot, but a guide's main job is actually an entertainer. So you have to keep people happy, you have to think about what people want before they even know they want it, and you develop some strange skills, and eavesdropping is a very important one. So you can be sitting here on your game drive, la di da di da, and you can have 6 people behind you, and you're talking about impala, but you're also listening to say, oh, I would like a certain beverage when I get home tonight, and you try sort of predict people's wants and not. Entertaining and telling stories, and that's a lot of guiding. Obviously you have to have the good bush knowledge, but the majority of guiding is entertaining. And then I know a lot of guides who've gone the complete opposite way and now work in commercial finance or property or banking or stuff I have very little knowledge about. But it just depends on the individual. And you will get the guides and people who will never leave the bush. And it just depends on what people want, and people want different things at different times of their lives. So as a few of you would have noticed now, we have started earlier in the morning, and Nancy from Minneapolis is wondering, well, if it starts half an hour earlier, is it going to end half an hour earlier? It is, Nancy, and the reason for that is we are trying to operate in the time where the animals are most mobile and you're most likely to have the best sightings. So at this time of the year, by 9:30 it's very hot and there's very little activity, so we will be ending at 9, so it will end half an hour earlier. But then in the afternoon on the sunset safari, it's gonna start half an hour later but also end half an hour later. So what we're doing there is we're putting ourselves into what I call the magic hour and spending more time in the magic hour. And we will be having a little section that is going to be after the sunset, and we'll be using the spotlights, and that does excuse me, give us the opportunity to see some of the more interesting nocturnal mammals like white-tailed mongoose and civets and genets and bush babies. So very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing and showing you guys a bit of nocturnal life here on Djuma and Arathusa. So with the change in seasons, we are going to start getting a slightly different set of characters making their way onto our set here at Safari Live. And Amanda from Alabama is wondering whether snakes are going to start making a play as it gets warmer. Definitely, Amanda, we have seen some more snake tracks on the roads recently. And Steph and I, when we were driving back to the Manuletti the other night, we did see a snake across the road in front of us. And Amanda's referring to the fact that we saw that dead honey badger with James, and whether it could have been killed by a snake, and whether that was because of the seasons changing. Well, speaking of that dead honey badger, I think we maybe should go have another look. As that skin falls off, we might be able to see a little bit more of what might have happened. But I think we'll definitely go check on that honey badger that is retired on the sunset safari. A little bit far to get there now. So as it gets warmer, waterhole is always a great place to be. So I'm going to pop down towards the Djuma waterhole and see if anything's there. So as we head down towards the Djuma waterhole, we're going to cross back to Scotty and see what he's been up to and if he's got any updates for you.
Welcome back, everyone, and we continue to track that female leopard. In all likelihood, Shadow, her tracks crossed over the Arethusa airstrip, heading still east, and we have given up on those tracks because it's a very thick block, and if she continues east, she's going to cross into this property on our right behind me called Hofmann's, where we cannot go. But the good news is that her general direction of movement is certainly back in the direction of Sandile, and it is only my guess that it is her tracks, but I'm fairly confident that by the size of her tracks and the area that they're moving in, it is in all likelihood her. Now, we did drive down the Triple M road, which is a boundary between Arethusa and Hofmann's, and we found some male leopard tracks that had dragged a kill across the road, but they dragged it into a property where we cannot go. And I did see some footprints of a tracker there, so they have in all likelihood searched for that animal and not found it, or if they did, not close to the road, otherwise we would have seen vehicles there. So what may have happened is that the hyena tracks that I saw in the area may have meant that the hyena stole that leopard's kill, but it did look like the footprints of a male. So those are the updates that I've got for you. North and then head straight east and hopefully bisect her tracks. If she has indeed crossed into our property, she may still be somewhere between the last tracks on the airstrip and where we're going now. It's about 3/4 of a mile to a mile from the last tracks to where we're going to continue searching. On the topic of leopards, we've got another question through from Marianne in Boston, and she's interested to know on any updates on Mvula and his territory. Has he actually been kicked out completely by Tingana? And yes, Marianne, I think it is fair to say that Tingana has successfully acquired a large portion of what used to be Mvula's territory, and that's up towards our eastern boundary of Djuma, between Djuma and Torchwood. But we haven't seen Tingana as far as that eastern boundary, which is a road called Cheetah Cutline. So I think we will still see Mvula from time to time, and I think he does still own some of the land on Djuma. It's not all belonging to Tingana now, but it will be interesting to see what happens. What you will tend to find though, Marianne, is they often not very strict rules, and there will often be an overlap or a buffer zone where male leopards may lurk in one another's territories, kind of no man's land, you could say, on the periphery of their territories. But he does seem to be spending Mvula at least more time further to the east of Djuma, as well as further to the north of Djuma. Territories don't necessarily also have to be these perfect round or square blobs, which is often as humans how we would assume them to be, but they can sometimes be a long thin corridor, for example, or very mismatched in shape. And I think that's what's going on with Karula at the moment. She's been spending a lot of time north of us on Buffalo's Hook, but quite far west in Buffalo's Hook. But in the same breath, been seen quite far east of us in Torchwood. And I think it's a long, thin territory that she's now acquired between Shadow and Nkanyeni. And who knows, possibly some other leopards as well. But both Karula and Mvula, who used to be the two dominant males and females on Djuma, are now seen less and less often here. But thankfully their gap has been filled by other leopards. In this case it's been Tingana and Shadow. And it won't be the first time that young leopardess ousts her mother from a territory. It kind of makes sense because a young daughter will be stronger and healthier than her aging mother, and therefore be able to acquire her territory within time. Well, sadly no sign of Shadow's tracks crossing this road into Djuma, but it may have happened just up ahead. I'm going to be sure to come out on tracking team this afternoon in search of anything to help James and Brent show you guys a good time. So it'll be those two out this afternoon, and just a reminder again that we will be heading out half an hour later this afternoon. So this morning we were half an hour early, and this afternoon we will be half an hour later. And thanks so much for joining in the sunrise safari action this morning. It's probably been the first drive where we haven't found you a big cat for quite some time, and it's quite nice though to be able to take time to view the other animals when the cats aren't around. So we're going to send you across to Brent quickly. Thanks for following. He's got some alarm calls that he would like you to join in the hunt. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Nikki and Tara in the final control. Enjoy and good luck.
Welcome back, guys. Just as we're coming to the end of the show, Liam and I heard a kudu alarm calling somewhere to the south of the Djuma Dam. We're just going to switch off and listen here. So I would have guessed for it to be around here somewhere. It was just two very distinct kudu barks. Bo! Bo! Which is a really good sign for the sunset safari at least. So guys, we're coming towards the end of the sunrise safari, and it has been quite a quiet one in terms of the predators, but we have seen an amazing general game. I mean, not often we get to see 3 or 4 species in one spot like we did right at the beginning of the sunrise safari. We're still listening here, and it was also wonderful to get to chat a little bit about the hominoid history in the area. And definitely we'll come back to that at some point in the coming days. It is a very nice different aspect that sometimes we forget that we are also part of this ecosystem and have been for a very long time. Even though we have sort of possibly evolved beyond it, we had to have come from it. So it has shaped us in what we are and who we are. So thanks very much for all your questions, and We really do appreciate them. We're going to keep looking around here for a little bit, VM and I, see if we can find whatever those kudu were alarming for, and hopefully they'll still be there for the sunset safari. So guys, have a wonderful day or morning wherever you are in the world, and remember that we're going to be starting half an hour later on the sunset safari. So goodbye from the wildebeest and myself.